That was mentioned at the meeting, that it had no significant value were the words. And thank you whoever recorded it, because that's how I found out about it. People do watch, that's the only thing, so I will disagree with you. I do watch the videos if I can't get here. So it might be a good thing to do.
I supported the motion.
Yep, but I'm just saying, it is a good thing, and that's where I heard Mr. Lamon say about tearing it down, which just astonished me.
Is it on the historical register?
No.
It is not.
It's not.
No, sir. It's on our documentation. It's recognized, I believe in like 2015 when Ms. Tackett, so Ms. Tackett wrote our comprehensive plan and our open space plan. Ms. Tackett's been writing the comprehensive plan here since 2007, for everybody who don't know. But it didn't appear until she officially wrote it for Tackett Planning. I think it's 2015, 2018. It was part of that comprehensive plan or open space plan where she mentions it.
I just wanted you to know that it had been discussed for in the 90s and later of that building. Mr. Richards, I don't know if anyone knows, used to work for the township, and I was here with him quite a bit, and we would always talk about someday he wanted his family to turn it over to us when he was gone, sell it to us, and you said at the meeting that it was something fairly new that we were working on, meaning 15 or whatever. I'm saying it wasn't. This was talked about in the 90s and earlier.
Sure.
About getting the building.
I read it in the appendium. I think that was written in 75. I also read about it there. So I've looked into the schoolhouse quite a bit. It wasn't like I was just throwing numbers out there. My biggest concern was the numbers. You know, is it worth the amount of money, Dave, that it would take to rehab it into the photos that we were seeing at that time? I'm never going to tell you it wouldn't be a beautiful structure. I could get any planner in here to build us the most beautiful building on the planet, date it back to that time. But my concern was, is it worth that money?
Historical value, it's worth the money, in my opinion. And a lot of other ex-supervisors' opinions.
Sure.
When was that built?
Around
Excuse me?
1900.
1892, it was built. Yeah, it was sold to Mr. Richards in 1954. It was Upper Frederick School District owned it prior, before they shut them all down. So I do know that's been here. And I did do some research, like I told you. I reached out to the Historical Society, Goshenotton Historical Society. And I asked him to write an email to what he thought here. Okay, as you know, I'm not up for just tearing things down. I understand what they are. Let me just read you what he wrote me in an email, and you guys can have this. Ms. Tackett can put it up. So he writes here on January 25th at 9:10 a.m. Mr. Wood writes, "Hello, I was asked to share my thoughts of the historical value of the church school located at the entrance of the township building parking lot. In short, I don't see any historical value whatsoever in the structure. None of the original fabric of the schoolhouse remains, and even if it did, there is next to nothing of any historical significance to be gained in its restoration, since one-room schools were common all over the township, operating until the 1940s and even 50s. Many townships have one of the buildings restored and refinished as they were, and what is to be learned can easily be found out by one visit. They were all very similar."
Was that when you said you were asking them if they would restore it? Is that an answer to that? Because you said you approached them to restore it. Are they saying they don't want to restore it?
Oh, so I didn't approach them to restore it.
You said that. You said you talked to them about restoring it.
So I asked Ms. Tackett if we had approached any historical places. She said she did, but I think they didn't have funds or something like that along the lines. They weren't interested.
Well, in the meeting when you talked about it, you said that you talked to them and they said they didn't want to restore it, was what you said. I'm sure you can look at the gentleman back there.
I'll have to look it back up again. I'm, off the cuff here. I mean, I can't remember every single thing that was said. That's why I'm kind of paraphrasing here. I can't quote Ms. Tackett, but I'm pretty sure that's what she had said. He said, "That said, in my view, the structure at Upper Frederick that is of the most significance historical and architectural value is the nice plank house on Colonial Road, built prior to 1730. That house is on the brink of destruction due to sections of missing roof and other structural threats. It is a plank house, not a log house. The walls are made of hand-hewn planks, about 4 inches wide and variable heights, most about 1.5 feet or more, which are so well hewn and shaped all by hand that a thin knife blade cannot be inserted between most planks. More significantly, the corner journey is of a compound dovetail fashion that is totally unique, not only in this area, but the whole region. I know of no other plank structures like it. Whatever resources that can be garnered for historical restoration should, I think, be concentrated in stabilizing that structure, making it weather tight while decisions are being made in the future. Best regards. So I agree with you, Mr. Hanson. And I think Ms. Tackett had said in a meeting, Merle Mess went to that school, and she's right. I've seen all the mess. There must have been a whole pile of them had gone through that school, and the Hansons as well.
No, Joan Gregg, not the Hansons.
Was it? Okay.
Joan Gregg.
Okay, so that might have been on another page, 'cause I've seen them in that impendium quite a few times as well. Maybe that was with the gas station. But as I said to her, you know, I'm not sure Mr. Mess would say $500 and some thousand garners restoring that place. And what I was saying, Mr. Hanson, is we bought it for $200,000. I think that was great of Mr. Richards to give it to the township. I think it has deteriorated significantly since you were here in the 90s. You know, over those times, water damage has been through there. You should read some of these reports, Dave. They're bad. I'm not saying that it couldn't be restored, because you can restore anything for any amount of money. It's just, is it worth it? So in that same comprehensive plan that Ms. Tackett wrote, both times, there was surveys done at the polls, both times. Both times, 84% of the residents said they were more concerned with our land preservation in this township, preserving open space, dealing with their roadways, and water management.
How many of them knew about the schoolhouse?
Dave, so you're bringing up my point now. Now, what did I say? I think we ought to have something like that put to the residents now, and maybe a flyer. It wouldn't be hard just to send out a flyer. You know what I mean? I get your concern. I'll bet you could find 10 people that are still in this township that went to that school, maybe 40.
Easily.
That's my point, though. And they would all come here and say it. But if I laid those numbers out in front of them, Dave, $525,000, that's a whole lot of money. And is it worth it? I say we could incorporate that land into this.
$100,000 of it is a grant, and 380 some thousand of it could be COVID funds. So it'd be little impact on the township. So you don't, Dave?
funds.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'd
Kevin.
like to speak.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin Murray, Big Road, township resident for about 50 years. Lived on Colonial Road for 30 of those years. 20 years volunteer on the park board here in this township. As Mr. Hanson said, this has been on the board's agendas for many years. The schoolhouse kills a couple birds with one stone. Obviously, this meeting room here tonight, it's a little small, isn't it? This is already laid out for you, ready to go for a larger meeting room. That allows you to then take this building and address the safety and health concerns of our employees here. That should be your top priority. I understand that the road crew needs some more space, but rushing to try and get that done by the end of the year is a mistake. Yes, it's needed, but there needs to be time and planning for that. And the township has saved several $100,000 to do that. So the schoolhouse is a good idea, and it's been in the works for a number of years. Steve, what was the findings on pulling the siding off?
Yes, I was gonna get to that. We did pull the siding off of there and expose the brick, and the brick's in good shape.
Really good shape.
There's just minor areas where you're gonna have to just repoint that, but
I
we
mean,
took it down. But
look at that, that'd be a focal point to this township. You said that you are 100%, this board is for preserving Upper Frederick Township. There you go. Actions speak louder than words. Start acting.
So what I'll say to that, Mr. Murray, is this. I travel around to all the townships around here that surround us. So while you're addressing something that Ms. Tackett has said, I agree. The personnel safety is of the utmost importance. But as we discussed in the past meeting, those concerns can be addressed with ballistic glass, things like that. So I went around to Red Hill. I believe that's where Ms. Pennicook's office is that Red Hill? So she's a sitting senator. You can walk straight through that door, but you gotta talk through ballistic glass. There's no emergency exit door or anything like that. There's cameras everywhere, there's buzzers to let you in, there's that. I like that. So I go around to the other townships, even Marlboro, go over there, again, cameras through the entryway, cameras in the foyer, buzzer, ballistic glass. Take a trip down Lower Frederick, walk through the door, cameras everywhere, buzzer on the door, ballistic glass. No emergency exit door. Actually, in Lower Frederick, they hit a button and this metal thing comes down. So safety is a big concern of mine. I get that. I understand you're concerned about this building out there, but as I just said to Mr. Hanson, that's one set of concerns here. I'm looking for the greater of it. This is just one example of it. So you're telling me that it would be great if I acted on this one example. But I gotta do what's best for every resident in this township. I have to answer to them. You bring up this meeting room size here. People were here because of the things that was going on in the past. So I go ahead and I do a little bit more research. All through 2020, 2021, that's where the jump starts. Okay, but leading up to that, there's 6 and 7 people sitting inside this room. That's how many people are here. As long as there's no big items on the table or controversial items on the table, nobody gets brought here. This, Mr. Heller, is the one that takes care of this township. So our roads, as it's pounding snow out there, ice, all that, they look as good as they do because of this man right here. That is my primary concern right now, along with the safety. That is my job. That's how I would address the public safety here. I understand the schoolhouse building. You got a supervisor who is already on board with it, so you're gonna get his vote, no doubt. I'm just not there because I have to answer to more than just 50 people. I have to answer to this entire township. And when I look at that building, I understand what you're saying about the ARPA funds. They're not being used for that. The ARPA funds are gonna be used for the road project, so we're not under tight constraints, making hasty decisions. That's what I'm trying to eliminate here. So I do want to do the research. I'm not saying tear the building down. There's something better there, I'm sure. But some folks that I talk to think it's not appropriate that I'm going to be doing township business in that building, not in the administrative building. So as I walked around to these other townships and drove around, there was only one that had a campus, that had a municipal complex. That was Limerick. And when I looked across the street, there was 2 towers there. That's how they afforded that. That's how they got that cluster housing. That's how they all got built up over there. And how did they preserve their historical sites? Because they have some just as long as us. There's a showcase inside, and they're all memorialized. They had 3 or 4 boardrooms, and they all sat dark and vacant. So I'm looking at that, Mr. Murray. And I have to be objective. I understand what you're saying. And I feel your pressure. Don't get me wrong, I've been getting chewed on the whole heat. But I still have to do what the rest of these residents see fit as well.
Make sure the residents know when all this money goes away because it didn't get used.
I'll tell you, Mr. Hanson, my thing is I go back to that pole. And I say, you know, we have a ton of road work, do we not, Mr. Heller, that needs to be done around here?
He knows my road's one of them, but anyway.
I know your
that
road is-
doesn't matter.
but
That
Dave, this is
doesn't
what I'm
matter.
saying.
It's two different subjects.
I don't need to act today, is
It's
my
two
point.
different subjects.
I don't
We
need to
don't.
act today, Mr. Hanson, is my point. I think we should sit here, talk about it, get some discussion going, and make an economical fiscal decision here. Don't just run down this path. Hey, until I brought this up, Dave, there's a report right here, $525,000. How am I supposed to go down the street and tell the other guy, hey, don't worry about your road, buddy. Don't worry about that stormwater management. We're gonna preserve a house that these people wanted to do. I can't do it, Dave. I have to do what's right first. And to me, the more pressing issues are stormwater management, open space, land preservation.
Spend the 100,000 that you're gonna lose to stabilize the building for now. That's an easy way. It's no money out of the township's pocket.
Absolutely, Ms. Fisher.
Spend the 100,000
Yeah, it's not-
that we have.
Well, you gotta see how that 100,000 ties us to it now, Dave. Right? You gotta see how it's.
Don't have to be this year. Stabilize it for in the future. Don't tear it down.
Right. The last time we had a discussion, the point was, the lift off the siding, and it sounds like Steve has done that, says that the brick is in good shape. We know that we have the $100,000 grant, and the last discussion that we had was, could we take the $100,000 grant, preserve the outside of the structure, make sure that we're locking it down, making sure that there's no degradation, continued degradation of the property, but use that grant fund specifically as they were intended for the house, so that for this school, so that we don't lose those funds. That is still at least my intention as a board member. That's my intention, to use those funds to make the building, the outside of the structure to be restored.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying make it into the new meeting room. I'm just saying, you said tear it down, and that's what I'm against. Because once we tear it down, it's gone. There's no changing your mind with a new board in 4 years or whatever. It's gone. Spend the 100,000 that isn't the township money. You're not taking it away from roads. Stabilize the building and look at it in the future.
So look,
That was
this is
just
what,
an option.
this is what we've got here. We've got, Tracy's looking for direction for next steps. Item 1, does the board intend to sell the property? Are we selling the property, yes or no?
No.
No. Okay, so we're not selling the property. Item 2, survey of the township properties was done last fall. We have 5 separate parcels that we had planned to consolidate into one parcel. Should I move forward with the consolidation of the lots? And if so, should I include the schoolhouse property? I would say yes to that item in its entirety, or no? What do we think?
Well, I think when I got there, I was gonna address that, but yeah, absolutely, that's what we planned on doing.
Okay.
This was still just public comment for the building is what we were doing
All
there.
right. Do we have, well, I don't know if there's more public comment?
I don't, is there any, yeah?
Rob Keenan, Figley'sville Road. I know the Planning Commission is currently looking at some ordinances about efforts to preserve historic sites. You know, just to preserve historic sites around the township. Well, that's a perfect example right there. You're talking about the plank house on Colonial Road. Township doesn't even own that. You know, we own this. You know,
Sure.
Step number 1, we own it.
Sure, absolutely.
Continue going.
And I understand that property owner has rights to do whatever he wants development-wise or what have you, but he also has the right and obligation to uphold his property. We have to have the upkeep of all of our properties. That has a chain link fence around it, and people gotta drive by it on a daily basis.
Sure, I totally agree. Like I said, my thoughts here, we're just not making a hasty decision. So Dave's talking about tearing it down. I believe I said that was an option. I said we could sell it, that was another option. We could also fix it, that's another option. The Hassan thing came from Mr. Wood, the Historical Society, when he was saying this has 0 historical value. He was just
To
giving
him.
his input to it,
To who?
to the Goshen Hopper
Right, to
Historical
0.
Society.
It has 0
I get
to
that.
them. To Upper Frederick, it has a lot. And your words posted this week
Yeah,
were
yeah.
100% preserving Upper Frederick Township. That's what this board is.
Sure it is. Yeah,
There you go. Preserve it.
it's already bought. It's ours. I totally get what you're saying. I understand your argument over and over again. I'm not gonna be pressured into spending $524,000. It's just not gonna happen.
We're not saying that. We're
I
saying spend the 100 and preserve it for now.
Dave, I understand that. I never said I wasn't going to.
Where are you getting 100 from?
It's a grant, we already have it.
That can only be used to work on that house.
But Dave,
If they don't use it, it goes away.
But what's it lock us into? That was a question that was brought up at the last meeting too. Do we know what that means? So if you file a grant, Dave, you were past supervisor.
Yes.
You write this grant. It's in there, and I read part of it today too, where it says, it has to be used for whatever it was written in for. Now, a concern was in the last meeting as well, if we say we're gonna restore this to historical value, now we're locked into that. We're locked into possibly spending $524,000.
And it could be over the next 20 years.
And there could be
Doesn't
other
lock it into
grants.
when.
There could be other grants that you could get to cover that.
So, look,
Okay.
just so we can push this off, we don't need to make a full decision on it now. We just need to take care of the items that Tracy's looking for feedback on.
Correct. Correct. This was a discussion. Again, this wasn't me making a motion to not use these funds or do any of this. This was a discussion. This was a public comment, period. That's what this was.
I think but I do think from a board of supervisors perspective, especially with two of us being new, we had, it was in our best interest to understand, well then, what are all of the possibilities? It doesn't mean that we were gonna go through necessarily with, tearing it down or selling it. It's like, what are, when you look at something and you're trying to evaluate it, you wanna say, well, what are all the possibilities? Where we left it off the last time, it was pull back the siding. Does it seem like it's in good enough shape to restore, or is it in worse shape than we could have expected? And it sounds like from Steve, we're in good shape, that we can move forward with whatever the plans are for restoring the facility from the outside in. And as some gentleman I heard you say, it might take longer, it might be 20 years, but at least we'll get the plan in place that we can start figuring out how do we preserve the facility. And it should start with a $100,000 grant. And if we, at some point, can all agree to use it for the outside structure, to make the structure, start looking like it's a preserved facility, even if we're not using the inside yet, then I think that at some point we should make that motion to move forward with it. But it would be a sin to lose the $100,000 grant that is tagged specifically for restoring that facility.
I do agree with you. This is Dave Hansen.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so we're looking for guidance here. Ms. Jack is looking for some guidance to see what she wants to do. Did you have a comment, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm Sandra Phillips, live on Perkionville Road, and we have an old stone farmhouse, so I understand where Mr. Hansen's coming from. He went to school there, right?
No, I didn't, but I know people that
People that
have.
went there, okay? So he has an emotional attachment from people that have went there. Doing our old house is not